Now, at least 4 people have been killed in Town in Johannesburg. They were gunned down in a taxi-related violence earlier today. 3 more people were wounded in the incident. And in a separate incident yesterday, 3 people were shot dead at the Zongezizwe taxi rank in Katlehong. Dr. Siyabulela Fobosi, who's a senior researcher at the University of Fort Hare, joins me live now to have a discussion about this. Dr. Fobosi, thank you so much for your time. A very good afternoon to you. It sounds like a case of the wild, wild west.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And good afternoon to the viewers. Definitely it is. And this problem has been happening for some time, especially since the deregulation of the industry. As you know, there's still a lot to be done. So it is. I agree with you.
So what's actually at the root of the problem, Doc?
Right. Thank you. The main issue, to be quite honest with you, is what I would call a stiff competition over the lucrative routes. So you have one operator that is allocated a particular route by the provincial regulatory entity to say, look, you're gonna use this route from point A to point B, and then that owner sees that, no, this route is actually very lucrative. There's a lot of money, this particular route. And then you have another one, because there's then what I would call, illegal, those who are not authorized, to actually operate on that particular route, would then say, look, I'm also going to use this route. Then there becomes a competition. A violent competition, because this particular one wants to remove this other one, to say, look, you can't drive on this route because I own this route. So it's some sort of an ownership of a route, so that some operators display that kind of an atmosphere, or that kind of a culture, if I may put it that way, to say, look, this is my route. You can't come just to control or drive here. So that's what happens most of the times.
So it's essentially a competition for routes as well. But like when it comes to businesses, competition is the nature of the game. What is it about particularly the taxi industry that is so averse to competition that it turns violent?
Thank you so much. Exactly. It's important that businesses compete effectively and efficiently. So the problem really is what I would call violent competition, because it becomes a problem when you have an operator that says, look, you're not gonna come here, right? You're not authorized to be here. I own this route. Of course, competition has to happen, and efficiently so, and effectively. But then it becomes a problem when there is an operator that is not registered to operate there. That's what happens in most of the times. And also, one of the biggest problems, that has been happening, over the years, is the issue of, the unregulation of the industry, and the informality. That's an issue that has been happening, and it's still the case, because the industry exists in that extent, to try and operate as much as possible, in an environment that is not purely regulated in the sense of being regulated. Though there's some regulation in terms of the laws that the industry has to follow, when operating on the road. But in the form of actually being formally regulated, that is still a long road to go.
What makes it a long road? What's taking government so long to properly regulate the taxi industry, particularly when we're seeing such violent competition, as you phrased it?
Right. Thank you once again. You see, the problem is what I would call, and in actual fact, that's what I've said, over the years, is what I would call a lack of strategic intervention. So there's lack of strategic intervention from the government side. So the government is not strategic enough, to actually intervene in terms of what is happening in the industry, to actually to find a way to sit down and to discuss, with some of the owners or the operators to actually say, look, this is how things are done. This is how we should actually bring about change. And in actual fact, one of the things that I've established, through my research, especially when I started this one, when I was conducting it in East London, I think over 10 years ago, to recently in Johannesburg, one of the things that I've established, as is actually some of the owners are saying, look, the kind of the way in which formalization is coming, they regard it as a top down, and some of them have argued that there's no engagement. So they argue that government is bringing this process as though they don't want to engage with the industry. So that's one of the things that I've established to actually say. Then I established that, look, given that fact, there's then what I would call a lack of strategic intervention. The government is not strategic enough in terms of actually bringing about change in the industry.
Where does that leave passengers of this transport system when we're looking at, for instance, the Easter weekend that's coming up, and we're having government coming up with safety campaigns, but just this morning 4 people were killed in taxi wars. So for those people who will be traveling over the Easter weekend over long distances, and I believe the long distances is where the competition is really, really stiff, and the stiffer it is, of course, the more violent it becomes. As somebody who's trying to just enjoy the Easter period and maybe go home, where does that leave me?
In a very difficult position, because you would imagine, that the industry, is seen as a very important industry, and it plays a big role in that fact, especially in terms of transporting, about 65% of commuters from their point A to point B, places of work, homes to places of work, and to also schools. Now you can imagine, when these things happen, then it means that the industry is not only putting the lives of the commuters at risk, but is also killing itself. Because when these things happen, I mean, it means that the industry will stop operating right there. It means that the revenue, about 50 billion that is generated per annum, it means that will then be affected, that the industry will not actually play a big role in that regard. Then it means that me as a commuter, I will not be able to get to my destination, right? So it actually, in a way, and in fact in a big way, it actually tampers, with the human rights aspect, the rights of the people to travel effectively, and actually the rights of the operators themselves, who have a right to operate effectively, because I mean, when then there is a violent competition, then it means that people can't actually operate their businesses effectively. It means that then there's a way in which people who actually try to make means in terms of running a business are actually pushed aside, and that is not good, and that is against they are human rights, which I think government should take it seriously, because I mean, the public transport plays a big role, in the economy of the country. So I do think that people should actually be the center. The people that are being transported should actually be the center, of what is being done in the industry. So the people that are operating there should actually say, look, we are actually playing a big role in transporting, not only transporting people, but also in actually making sure that they exercise their right, the freedom of movement, to actually move from point A to point B, and be able to participate in the general economy of the country, and actually play a big role in that regard.
And thank you so much for reminding us of those human rights infringements that are also possibly at play in many of these instances as well. Really appreciate you speaking to us this afternoon. That is Dr. Siyabulela Fobosi, who is a senior researcher at the University of Fort